Hello, everyone. Welcome to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. This is your host, Becky McNett, along with Tara Martini. We are so glad to have you listening today, everyone, as we live and share stories of mental health. Good morning, Tara.
Good morning, my dear. So on our show, we say so often that everybody has a story.
Yeah, you say that all the time.
We do. Yet, one thing we don't talk a lot about is that when we're living that story, although we know that everybody is living a story, when we're living our own, it can be very isolating.
It absolutely can.
Yeah, and we can feel like we're the only one living that story. So as we're wading through any level of hardship, it can be isolating. We can feel like we're the only ones, in part because we might be unable to look beyond ourselves and see what others might be experiencing similar circumstances. It may be we choose to retreat because being around others takes a great deal of energy.
Yeah.
Whether it's physical or mental.
Yeah.
No matter the reason, we might find ourselves pulling away from our support system. Or, sadly, we might be going through a hardship and we may realize that we don't have a support system.
Well said.
Which is a heartbreaking
thing. It highlights that it isn't there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
During those challenging times. So I would love for us to process a quote. Even in a room filled with everyone you know and love, you can feel deeply alone.
Yes. So I talk about frequently how sometimes when we're most surrounded by people, it highlights how lonely we feel. Because we see people around us and we don't feel seen in the experience. And I've had people say to me, wow, how can I be so seen and unseen at the same time?
Yes.
How can I be so seen and unseen at the same time?
Especially if with that quote, we've grown up with these people, or these people know everything about me, yet I feel like a stranger right now sitting in this room with them.
Yeah.
And how is that possible?
Right.
Right?
Yeah. Or we're told these people are our people. They've been, they maybe have been with you for a long time and have a longevity of just knowing your life because they've been present through lots of moments. And thinking about how can you know me and not know me at the exact same time?
And
what an interesting paradox.
I was just going to say paradox. What a crazy paradox, especially because during a hardship, and I use the word hardship because there's so many things. It could be grief. It could be a financial hardship. It could be a transition in life. A lot of the times we are experiencing that with our loved ones, right? Because grief isn't just one person experiencing that, right? It's an entire family. Financial hardship, it's not just one person who's financially struggling.
Right.
It can be a partnership. What's fascinating is, but each of you are truly experiencing it on your own.
From your own view.
Yes.
We are unique individuals. So from our own compilation of experiences that we've had coming up to that moment, whatever that hardship is.
Yes. And that is where that feeling of isolation and loneliness comes from. And so I want to spend some time first today, before we even get to the main focus of the episode, on first just digesting and kind of focusing in on that sense of loneliness and isolation, because it is such a universal topic for any type of hardship that you're going through. And I found this fascinating article by Dr. Stephen Buran titled "The Evolution of Social Connection as a Basic Human Need." And he stated some fascinating things, some things that I had known before, and one thing that I found particularly interesting. So he says, we all know that humans are social creatures, but our drive to connect with other people and form relationships is, I will finish that after a break.
Yeah, fascinating topic. We're going to be talking about loneliness and what we do about this.
Yes.
Through our whole show today.
Yes.
We're going to take a short commercial break, but stay tuned as we dig deeper into what it's like to combat isolation and loneliness. Thanks for listening to Feels Out Loud. We'll be back in just a moment.
You gotta find the people.
Welcome back, everyone, to Feels Out Loud, brought to you by Becoming Together Therapy and Wellness. I am Becky McNanton along with Tara Martini. Let's dive right back into our discussion on how we can experience isolation and more about what this is. You mentioned right before the commercial break, kind of a series of things that we cut you off. So I want you to start there. And then obviously what we can do to cope with isolation and loneliness. Right. We're going to get there.
Yes.
But you take it away, Tara.
Right. So obviously we're not going to spend the whole episode talking about isolation and that feeling, because then we wouldn't be doing anyone any justice, because we need to talk about, well, we feel that way now. What are we going to do about it? Mm-hmm. So I had mentioned the very beginning of an article that said, as we all know, humans are social creatures. Our drive to connect with other people and form relationships, is not just a whimsical motivation. It is a basic human need, because it improves our whole overall health and well-being.
Yes.
We've realized over time it's just as important as food, water, shelter, because it lays the foundation of us being able to not just survive, but to thrive. We need human interaction. It's rooted in us biologically as a species. Mm-hmm. In fact, what they have come to find out is that humans have evolved for that, not just physical connection, but for that social connection.
Interesting.
And where it connects to loneliness is that, so if our brains have evolved to fulfill the basic need for social connection, what happens then when we are socially disconnected? Well, it turns out there's an evolutionary adaptation at work here.
Huh.
Our need for social connection is so important that we have evolved a signaling mechanism that lets us know when we need more. Well, ladies and gentlemen and people out there, what is that signal? Loneliness. Loneliness is...
What an interesting way to look at that emotion of loneliness.
Right? Because I love when we're doing research for these articles, and then it completely just stops us and is like, well, wait. Mm-hmm. Because I had never, just like you said, looked at the concept of loneliness in that way. Mm-hmm. Because if you take that reframe and look at it now as loneliness is not just this sad, overwhelming feeling that takes over my whole body. It is this beautiful signal that my body is saying, you need more connection. Mm-hmm. Listen to me now.
Mm-hmm. Well, if we think about it as it isn't an outcome, it's a sign to do something else, kind of like a hunger pain would be.
Exactly.
Which is what an evolutionary sign that we have developed to say, you need something.
Yes.
So our body sends us a signal, as you mentioned, and then we have to respond to that. When so often loneliness is thought about as an outcome.
Yep.
You are lonely, and that's where you stay. Wow.
But no more. We're not thinking like that. No more, folks.
Yeah.
Yep. So now, as we know it, we've evolved to the point that loneliness is our signal. We need connection. Well, now how do we go about making connection during hardship when what we've done during hardship is isolated ourselves?
Yes, right.
So that seems like a daunting task. Well, so that's what today's episode is about. Mm-hmm. It's this beautiful thing called finding support.
Yeah.
So there are a number of sources of support to help reduce the sense of isolation and loneliness. But today, we're going to focus on one resource, and that is finding human connection through support groups.
Yeah.
Which I'm a big fan of.
And can be like a really big hurdle to get to a place of...
Yes.
Because I'm thinking about in hardship, this experience of isolation often begets isolation. We further remove ourselves from the things that you were just talking about of no one understands me. Yes. I'm alone in this experience.
Yes.
And then it moves to, we don't necessarily even feel an energy or motivation to go seek it.
Mhm.
And that can be signs of depression.
Mhm.
So we're going to make it sound kind of easy. This is actually really hard.
It is really
to
hard.
move to a spot of saying, wow, I need support.
Mhm.
My body's telling me from loneliness that I have to connect.
Right.
That's what's required here.
Right.
And that one avenue, there are lots of avenues of connection, but you're saying a really important one we're going to focus on for the whole
Right.
rest of the show on
Right.
what does it mean to seek support in a group?
Right. And just like you said, it's so important to acknowledge, and like I stated previously, this is just one of many things you can do.
Mhm.
Yes, we acknowledge it's hard to do. That's why we're going to address like what are common fears. Okay, here are the fears, but then here's some stuff about those fears.
Mhm.
This is hard, but here's ways to make it easier.
Mhm.
And if you think of it, we're not saying go talk to 5 strangers from your work environment that have no idea what you're going through, right? It is something more beautiful than that and much more supportive.
Mhm.
And so we're going to talk all about that. So what I first want to do is just look at, okay, what's the purpose of support groups? What are the benefits? But also, what are support groups founded on, right?
Sure.
Because they are very different than going to one-on-one talk therapy, which is still a wonderful way. If you're sitting here going, there's absolutely positively a listener going, Tara, there is no way you're going to get me in a room with 6 to 8 other people. Okay. There is one-on-one therapy.
Sure.
And
That's always
that
an
is a
option of
great
seeking support.
option.
Yep.
And you can do both at the same time. You
Yep.
can also be going to a support group and going to therapy.
Mhm.
But let's today just focus on support groups. So first, support groups are founded on the premise that supportive interactions with others can give individuals a sense of empowerment, increase a sense of self, and enhance coping skills. You want to take the next one, Becky?
I love that you say that. They really are rooted in this sense of empowering an individual to really
Yes.
own their story,
Yes.
not avoid the story,
Mhm.
but to kind of live it and breathe it.
Yep. And it's my story to tell.
Yes. Support groups are guided by this deep thought that people facing similar problems have a shared understanding and can offer mutual empathic support that naturally occurring social supports might not. So if we think about, we see support groups around a topic,
Mhm.
and that's what this statement that you and I are saying
Right.
is focused on.
Mhm.
That a support group focuses on people who have a shared experience coming together. Doesn't mean that what you get in terms of support from your other social avenues
Right.
aren't good.
Right.
It means that these people who have experienced this particular hardship might know something unique about that thing.
Mhm. They get you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that is so important.
Mm-hmm.
So, another thing, support groups promote vicarious learning, which is the concept that people learn through observing others and the outcome of others' behaviors. These interpersonal relationships are considered important in moderating the ways in which an individual interprets and responds to an event. Now, when I was typing that, I thought, well, this really honestly goes back to how a child learns anything. They learn how to behave through watching others.
Mm-hmm. That's what you mean by vicarious learning.
Yes.
Vicarious learning is
Yep.
outside of someone else.
Yep.
You're experiencing what they're experiencing,
Mhm.
and you're absorbing that from a space of learning something new.
Yes. And how amazing how you can do that. Vicarious learning can be done at any age group, and it can be done in any environment.
Mm-hmm.
So taking your hardship and then sitting and watching others who are surviving and wading their way through
Mhm.
your same hardship
Yep.
is an example of vicarious learning.
Mm-hmm. And we do vicarious learning. A silly example recently that I had was I found myself in a line out, like waiting for something
Mhm.
that actually wasn't the line. It's sort of humans got into this line, and I realized it was like 5 people in front of me moved over to where the line actually was.
Yes.
That's vicarious learning. Because I saw them doing something and then I
Mhm.
said, oh my gosh, that's actually where the line is.
Mhm.
We all just were doing this thing over here because
Yep.
groupthink was happening. So vicarious learning happens all day long. We're
Right.
always doing this. But in
Yep.
a support group style, you're saying that through witness of other people's processing,
Mhm.
we might also learn how to process.
We may learn to process. We may learn to develop coping skills.
Yes.
All those beautiful things.
Another concept that is foundational to support groups is self-efficacy.
Which is huge.
Huge. This is a person's belief. So we're talking about what self-efficacy is here, everyone. This is a person's belief in their ability to succeed in specific situations or their fundamental abilities to accomplish tasks. It's not just about having the skills, but really one's confidence in using them.
Right.
That people will be able to say, I can implement them to get a desired outcome. That could be expressing myself. That could be practicing vulnerability. It could really just even be getting through the day. But support groups offer that both in that vicarious learning of other people's self-efficacy and people sharing with us that they see us doing it. Yeah.
Which is huge. And later on, when we talk about the benefits that one can receive, there's an entire section about self-efficacy, about, benefits dealing with which in any group environment, what can we gain from it? And the benefits are quite endless as far as what you can gain from them. And then not only do you gain them from support groups, but then they carry over and kind of bleed into other facets of your life. And it's pretty remarkable. So the last piece of kind of what the model of support groups are founded in is in the coping theory, in which individuals manage stress in challenging situations. In that idea of it encompasses strategies, problem-focused approaches to emotion-focused techniques. As you learn coping strategies, helping learn resilience and becoming stronger to face life's challenges. And you do that through learning other people's stories and learning from one another, gaining that strength through each other. And that's that piece of learning those coping skills from one another and then gaining through that self-efficacy piece of having the confidence of, I am able to do this.
Yeah. So tell me about some types of support groups that exist.
Well, let me tell you, the possibilities are really endless.
And now with social media and the internet, we have tons more.
Well, it is.
Which is awesome because really it isn't a one size fits all. There are a lot of options on what types of support groups are out there.
There are. And when I was starting to create the list, I mean, we could spend the entire hour just like talking about them. I tried to do a variety, but before I go over just a few of them, I want to say that if you're in a community, whether it's a town or a school setting, if you look around and you're like, there isn't a support group for what I need, you can create them, right? So if you're in a school and so when I was in the school setting as a counselor, I would have students come to me and say, I really want to have, I need this. So my parents are going through a divorce. I really wish you had a support group for that. All right, let's make one. So please have that voice. And if you're in a school environment, go to your counselor or your admin or your social worker and say that. If you're in a community, then go to your church leader, your mental health provider, your healthcare provider, and ask about those things. If you sincerely look around and go, wow, there isn't one. So don't get frustrated and think, well, there's just no opportunity. So there isn't going to be one. We can always create one. But what types of support groups exist? There are ones that have been around, I feel like, since the beginning of time, long before you and I were on this earth. There are ones connected to addiction. There are ones for the person who is struggling with addiction, like AA and NA. Then there are ones for loved ones, like Al-Anon, Alateen. There are, which is so amazing, and we have had someone on here talking about this wonderful program called the Face It Foundation, which is focusing on men's mental health. And there are ones we just went to a benefit, and this project was mentioned, the Aliveness Project, which deals with HIV and AIDS. We have the Grief Club, which is a remarkable free resource for families that offers support groups. We have Brighter Days under the same philosophy. There is, which I didn't even know this existed until I was researching, Twin Cities OCD group for people who have OCD and are looking for a support group. Hope Lodge deals with families who are dealing with cancer, whether it is the patient themselves or family members. Within school districts, they have grief groups, new student groups, students who are struggling with substance abuse. My point is, there are support groups everywhere.
Yeah. If you think about, for listeners who are sitting there right now, if you think about any identity that you might have or life experience you had. So really those two, if you're a parent, if you're a sibling, if you are a new resident, if you are, you can, lots online now, and even Facebook groups you're a part of. Those are all identities or experiences you've had. There probably are opportunities now for ways to seek support within those communities. Whether or not it's an active, we meet every week or every 2 weeks and talk about something, we might be on a shared Facebook page together. We might share resources together. And you mentioned lots of ways on how to find one, like our healthcare providers, mental health providers, religious communities, even searching online. Our neighborhood, if you think about like your city, lots of, accessing the people in your world, asking the people who you live by or your, as you mentioned, school staff. Tell us listeners about what common fears there might be, because there's people listening who are like, that terrifies me.
Well, absolutely. This would sound terrifying for a lot of people, because you think of any hardship we're going through is a very personal thing. It is, even if you take our work environment, we are blessed to work with amazing humans and we are very close-knit. But it is not like if something happened to one of us that 2 seconds after it happened, we're going to walk into our therapy office and go, hey guys, everybody, this is what happened. Right? It takes time. You have to process all those things. And yet that idea would still be terrifying to share it with everyone. Okay, well, those are people that are family, basically. Now you're telling me I'm going to walk in to a room of strangers I've never even seen before. And I'm going to share that vulnerable thing. Heck yeah, there's going to be fear associated with it. So what do we do with it? Well, so a common fear is judgment. Or that there is a stigma associated with it. The stigma typically comes from when there's an addiction story. So that is when it's Alcoholics Anonymous or when there's drug use involved. So not so much around, a child who's going because of a loss of a parent or,
but there
something like that.
We've done the show on generational thoughts about mental health.
But mental health, definitely a stigma.
There may be pieces where culturally values you were taught around, you should do this yourself. You don't need people, things like that. There might be an experience internally of a stigma in reaching out, particularly to strangers.
Yes. And in so many times, there have been even the idea of going to therapy or even the school counselor was this idea of like, do you have to tell my parents that I'm here? Right?
The
because
privacy
we
piece.
Keep our problems to ourselves. So that fear of judgment or that stigma around going, the beautiful thing with it and the confidentiality piece of who's going to know that I'm here. Well, the great thing with all three of those kind of lumped together is that it is confidential. Just like in therapy, what happens here stays here. There are no names, right? So that you are not, there's no list outside the door. There's no list that's given, or anything that's like put on the internet or posted. It's very private. When I've done them in schools, when I've attended them as a participant, they've been very mindful about confidentiality, where even if there's like a window on a door, they'll put construction paper or a poster over it so that even people walking past are not going to be aware of who's in that. And even if it can be all adults in the room. It doesn't matter the age group. The piece is you're safe, and everyone's priority is you're safe. It's confidential.
Yeah.
Because that's what they want people to feel.
Yep.
A common fear is that social anxiety, because just like we talked about, this is stemming from the isolation we spoke of.
Yes.
Well, wait a second. I've pulled away from my loved ones and from that connection piece. Now you're telling me to be in a group.
Do the opposite.
Yeah. And what I say to that is, just like we talked about previously, is we are not asking for you to be around 6 random strangers that we picked off the street. We are asking you to be around 6 people that share a part of your story. They don't know exactly how you feel, nor do you know exactly how they feel.
Well said.
And that, to me, when I've talked to students, when I've talked to other adults, that's the greatest sense or chance for buy-in, is that sense of loneliness you have had. Going back to those words of you're sitting in a room with everyone you know and love, and yet you feel alone. The minute you walk into that room and go, wait a second, every single one of those people is going through the same hardship. This is the very first time in my entire life, the last 5 years, that I don't feel completely alone. And that's the greatest feeling in the world.
It absolutely is.
And sometimes the only time you feel peace is when you're sitting in that support group.
Well, and there's something about when you're sitting in a room, and one of the fears that people can have is, will this work? Will it be effective?
The effectiveness. Yep.
When you're sitting in a room with people who understand a part of your story because it's the name of the group. It's what the group is about. So without saying it out loud, an aspect of me. You might not know how I feel about it. You might not know my thoughts and perceptions of it. You don't know the rest of my story, but you know that part. That's very fundamental and profound for me. There's a interesting witness that happens in that.
It is. And the unwritten, unspoken piece, right? Of just like, and it's something you can't even describe, but it's that sense of connection without saying anything.
Yes, right.
Right. So last two would just be that fear of being vulnerable. Well, the wonderful thing of the small group piece or the support group piece is you share when you're ready. And so know that people meet you where you're at. So it is never the mentality of, all right, my name's Tara, and here we go in 2 seconds. I'm going to share the deepest parts of my soul with everyone.
Right.
If I'm not ready, I don't need to be ready.
Right.
Part of my comfort can just be in hearing other people's stories. And when I am ready, I will share.
Right.
And then lastly, the fear of
that's the vicarious learning part.
Exactly. Look at you using the words.
The sitting there and listening to other people's stories is participation in the thing.
It is. It is. And then lastly, fear of, there's always, people can be scared of a fear of conflict. Are typically high, right? Because whether it's you're fearful or, there's going to be tears and sadness or, people being uncomfortable, that fear of conflict or conflicting points of view. Know that there's always someone there as a mediator, right? And
some facilitator.
Absolutely. And whether that's a mental health provider or a healthcare provider, or a lot of them, like with the Face It Foundation, it's a peer of yours who is living the same experience, but who has some form of training
Yep.
and can mediate, the responsibility is never on you, right? There is someone who will mediate. So don't ever go into it like, okay, this is my responsibility. All you're responsible is for yourself
Mm-hmm.
and your emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Burden is not on you.
Mm-hmm.
So going into a support group, just knowing, take all those fears and go, all I have to worry about is me.
Mm-hmm.
And the timeline is when I am comfortable. And that's all you need to worry about.
For sure.
Yeah. So one of the things that's important, I always say, is ask questions before joining a support group. Just like we
Mhm.
say to our clients who are new, what questions do you have?
Yes.
Because you need to ask questions to make sure that this is a good fit, because it may not be. We want our clients to have the right fit, because that's what's most important for your
Yep.
therapeutic journey.
Yep.
So a lot of the times on the website, on the flyer, on the Facebook page, on their website, they will inherently answer your questions that you have by just, if you're reading the
Mhm.
information.
And some of these asking questions, I just want to say this before you get into
Yeah.
the questions to ask. Some of the questions that you have might get at some of the fears you have about whether to
Yes.
go
Yes.
or whether to join.
Yes.
So if you read on the website, well, we only meet when it's raining. And you're like,
Yes.
well, I don't like the rain.
Yes.
And I'm being silly.
Yeah.
You can say, well, from that, will this
Yep.
work? Probably not for me.
Yep. Yep.
So asking the questions allows us to respond to some of the fears we might have.
Yep. So I'm going to go through these rather quickly, but questions ask, does the group meet for a set period of time, or is it just going on indefinitely?
Mm-hmm.
Where does the group meet? What times and how often? Is there an organizer or a moderator?
Yeah.
Does that person have training? What are the guidelines around confidentiality?
Yeah.
What are the basic rules for participation? And a huge one that a lot of people don't ask, does it fit my values? I was once looking, a client and I were looking for support groups for this person. And this seemed like a perfect match. And then we looked at the location of where it took place. And it happened to be a very, very traditional conservative church.
Okay.
And that was a deal breaker because it did not match this person's values.
The values.
Imagine if we didn't look at that.
Yeah.
And this person just showed up.
Yes.
So it's so important to make sure
Great
it matches and really make sure on the location, because you don't ever want to set yourself up for failure in an uncomfortable situation. And also looking at, what does a typical meeting look like? And is it free or is there a fee to it? Because finances can get in the way as well.
Yeah.
But then also look at, does insurance cover it? And then if this is a school support group, if you're in high school or college, how will this work for attendance and missing work? You don't ever, you want to make sure this is, what's the protocol for start time and being pulled for class? And then location and confidentiality are huge. And then is this with an outside mental health provider and in-district staff member? Now, all these things, we've talked about fears. We've talked about, what can happen during these things. But I want us to talk about the benefits of them.
Yeah, right.
Because there are benefits, my dears. Wondering, do you and I want to go every other for the beautiful benefits? So the first one, benefit regarding self-efficacy, like we talked about, is that it offers opportunities for members to participate in activities, set some goals, and experience success, which is so incredible regarding the hardship that they're in, which boosts self-efficacy, which is massive.
Yes. And people who participate in support groups receive this, it's hard to explain in words, but it's kind of this verbal encouragement, this positive feedback from the facilitators, from the other people who are in the group, which can really strengthen their confidence about themselves and their belief in their abilities.
And they carry that outside of the sessions.
And that has an impact that really, that's why I say it's hard to put into words, because we do carry that in our lives.
Yes.
It becomes repetitive on what do I believe I can do? And even the simple, like, you got this, or I know you can do it, or you will get by until next time we see each other. Things like that give someone a sense of self-efficacy.
Also, the support group can also just provide, which seems simple, but it's so profound. It's safe and it's supportive. And it provides that, which is, there are two things which you desperately need when you're going through hardship. You feel less stressed and more hopeful a lot of times after you leave these things. And then that increases your sense to cope when future challenges arise.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the physical health outcomes just right there with feeling less stress. Research shows support groups, it might sound strange to people, but there is a lowered stress level from participation in support groups. The emotional support and sense of community has this positive impact when we have lowered stress levels. We've talked about this on the show, what that does to the other parts of our physical capacity.
Big things. Improves immune function, reduces stress levels, impacts in a positive way the immune system, which is huge.
Yeah, sometimes even pain management or chronic pain, that this opportunity to share what other people are using as strategies goes beyond even physical pain. But if people are able to kind of use groups to say, here's what I'm doing, here's how I'm coping, can have a different perception change.
It absolutely can. Yep. And then one of the most important ones for me is peers are therefore able to validate and normalize the problem, thereby reducing isolation and fostering one of my most favorite words, a sense of belonging. So to wrap up this segment, I had to find a poem.
Yeah, read it for us.
So this is called Belonging by Miss Deborah Christensen. Where do I belong? Is it here with you as I peel back my shell and let you all see my soft center? Do I belong? I question if I am too sad, too happy, too much, or is what I feel just right? Why do I belong? I need the darkness to see the starlight, just like I need to see me reflected in all of you.
Wow.
As I share my story and listen to yours, I need you to help embrace my uncertainty, to accept the hard parts as well as the soft parts of me. I need you to stop being scared of being me, to learn to draw close instead of you pulling away. I'm scared to take the risk of diving in deep or paddling shallow, although either is okay. I'm scared of being too childish, of wanting too much, of needing too much. I belong here. You are each me, and I am you. I find light in our darkness and joy in our togetherness. Belonging. Love overcomes fear. My eagerness to clasp your hands shows me connection can be made. Belonging. Helps me see myself lovingly and with greater softness, and lets me believe that when I fall, I can stand again.
Wow. What a beautiful poem. And of course, folks know I have a high bias that poems are incredible. I'm so struck by several parts of that poem and the idea that support groups foster belonging. And so much of what is at play with loneliness is a wonder if we do.
Yes.
That when we experience that isolation and then the cue of loneliness, it's where do I belong? Because how can I belong if I'm not seen?
Right.
And or not known. And this gets at that, like, you understand me.
And that the beginning, I love how she transforms from questioning at the beginning and then at the end, that confidence in that I do believe she believes that when I fall, she can stand again.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and because she first is asking, do I belong?
Yeah. And just the questions, and then it becomes more statements.
Yeah. And that aspect of I need to see me reflected in all of you. I think that is the fundamental nature of support groups.
It absolutely is.
I need to see me reflected in you. There's vicarious learning in that. There's being seen in that.
There's all the things.
And share my story and listen to yours. Beautiful.
Because they are the same.
Wow. So much to think about here. We're going to head to a commercial break, but when we come back, we're going to talk through listener questions about all things support groups and the impact on mental health. Feels Out Loud will process your questions and thoughts in just a moment.
You gotta find the people.
We are back again with Feels Out Loud, and this part of the show is where we talk through questions from you all, our listeners. If you have a question related to mental wellness, sharing feelings, or any of our topics for each week that you would like us to process through, please visit our website at becomingtogethermn.com and find that Feels Out Loud page to submit a question directly, or you certainly can email us at contact@becomingtogethermn.com. Definitely follow us on social media as well. We really want to hear from all of you and what you're wondering about. And a huge thank you to the people who submitted thoughts about support groups today. We had a few.
We did. So question number 1, which I felt like was such a common concern that families might have, is we live in a small town. I fear my kid's school does not have any support groups. Any thoughts on what I could do?
Yeah.
And I thought this question was so relevant because it's different if your kid's in high school or college where they are more likely they could advocate for themselves. But if your kid is in elementary school, what role could the parent play? And so I first would definitely talk to the school. Like we said, reach out to administration, school psych, social worker, school counselor, and first see if they have any. And then if they don't, you can use that voice of yours and say, hey, whether it is we recently lost a loved one, we're going through divorce, we have a new baby on the way, and that's a huge transition. I can promise you there is another child in that school that is going through the exact same thing. And so they can create that support group. Another thing that, and I've done this before, a lot of times in the smaller communities, particularly since COVID, they have created a lot of online support groups. And I've run these before in the past. And so one of the crazy amazing things is that you can end up with a support group and kids will be from all over Minnesota.
Yeah, I've been in support groups with people in other states.
Isn't that just remarkable?
I went online to find a group that resonated with me, and it was people from all over the nation.
Yeah,
which was awesome.
It is amazing. I led a support group for transgender youth, and that was a support group for kiddos. It happened to be they were all over Minnesota. I've done a connection support group where it was just simply, hey, I'm lonely, I'm a student, let's just have, typically around the lunch hour, a group. It was amazing. I had a child in Italy.
Wow.
A child in Italy who, that was the furthest away. It was incredible. Most of everybody else was from Minnesota, but it was honestly just to decrease their sense of isolation and loneliness.
That's amazing.
It was remarkable. My point is, there can be a support group for anything. Look online. It does not matter where you are. That doesn't have to be the barrier.
Yeah, and we have talked on the show about some of the pros and cons of social media. It is one of the huge pros that people can connect on that aspect of your story that you might share.
Yes.
In ways we used to not be able to because we didn't have that avenue. And our second listener asked the question of, I am part of the LGBTQ plus community and want to make sure that any group I'm a part of is supportive of that. How can I go about finding out? And I would say, do a little recon about, as you mentioned just early in the show, Tara, where's the location of the group being held? Maybe on the website of the place that do some research about that organization. Maybe on the flyer, ask around.
Yep.
Look at reviews if you can.
Yep.
Anything you would say about that?
Yeah. Just a couple things. One, asking is the big thing. When I started at Becoming Together, I was the intake person, and I would just have people ask. They'd say, "Are you LGBTQ plus friendly?" Yes. So ask. Also, you can ask when you get, like you said, usually they will say on there, but if not, just give them a call and ask one of the resource people.
We are at the end of our show for today, everyone. Thank you for listening this morning. And in the week ahead, be kind to yourself. Remember that connection fosters wellness, and your voice is one that the world around you needs to hear. Share yourselves, friends.